Hello there, and welcome to the first instalment of the Now Daft Football Podcast with me, your host, Testo.
Me, Ben.
Me, Jack.
Me, Andy.
Me, Mathew.
Today, me and the boys are going to be picking our 26-man England squad for the Euros, and we're going to start off right away with goalkeepers. Jack, would you like to go first?
Yeah, well, so I've picked three here. So I picked Dean Henderson as my number one, then Sam Johnson, and I picked Nick Pope. So obviously he's a iffy one with his injury, but he's still in my squad.
Now I'm going to jump straight in, Jack. Why have you picked Sam Johnson? Like, he has conceded singly himself 76 Premier League goals this season. Statistically, the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League this year for saving shots. How is he in your England team?
I just think he's stats-wise, I just didn't get us wrong. I think with West Brom, I think with his team overall, I don't think it's the strongest team compared to others. But if you go for the likes of Pickford, what's he done? What Sam Johnson hasn't done? For me, I'm thinking about both on the same level.
Just to back up Jack there, Sam Johnston's had the most saves in the Premier League this season, so he actually was.
Because he's played for West Brom, Andrew.
Yeah, I know that.
If he's been the busiest,
can't argue with facts.
Surely he is going to concede the most, which goes against my point, but it is worth saying that he has conceded the most goals. I agree with Jack.
I can also go with Ben. I could have put Pickford in just because he's got more England caps than Sam Johnson, but I just think to give him a chance and let him go, it could give him a boost in his career. You don't know. But for me, this season, I just think from December onwards, I just think Jordan Pickford hasn't been. I don't think he's number one standard for me.
Now, for me, I would take Pickford. I reckon he's.
Yeah, I think earlier this season he wasn't too great, but lately I think he's been alright.
I agree.
It was a toss-up for me between Pickford and Sam Johnston, but I did go with Pickford probably due to his experience in international football.
I think Pickford offers something a bit different all the other keepers that we've got, and I think especially if we're playing like a weaker team, that distribution is going to be like vital.
I doubt we'll end up playing a weaker team, to be fair. If we've got Croatia in the group first game, for me, I started Dean Henderson that game. He's going to either play the Europa League final, which is Wednesday, or sat on a bench to De Gea. So he's going to be wanting to go. He's played really well in the Premier League when he has played. He's played well in the Champions League. Why not start him? I would say Pope, but he's going to be injured.
He's played well when he has played, but he hasn't played much. I don't know how many of you have brought Henderson?
I have.
I've brought Henderson, and that's because he's got the same amount of clean sheets this season as De Gea, who is known as Man United's number one. I think Dean Henderson's soon going to take that title from him and become Man United's main goalkeeper.
But I also think it's a big ask. You're saying Dean Henderson, it's his age, for how good of a keeper he is, and he's pulling how many goals he's conceded against De Gea, who's a world-class keeper.
It's 4 clean sheets for both of them.
Much to build. He's got so much to build on. That's why I've chucked him in, because he will be England number one. One day he will.
And I agree with that.
One day, looking short term at the Euros, do you really think he's a wise choice, especially in terms of Ben saying that he's going to start him? I think one day he's going to be huge, but if you're looking at the Euros and you're looking at his performance this season, how many minutes he's got in, I don't know if he'd be my first choice for England.
Not proved it for you, though.
I think he's played all right, but if it was me, looking purely to win that game against Croatia, that first game, and get as far in the tournament as possible, I don't think I'd be starting him at all. I'd maybe bench him, but I don't think I'd be starting him for any of the games.
If you bench him, who would you start?
It sounds bad, but I'd start Pickford.
I completely understand why, but I just personally wouldn't.
He's been in decent form.
I can't stand a
blatantly
goalkeeper
quality.
with awful positioning and short arms. I'm sorry, but he's not a goalkeeper. That's why I would be off in goal. My arms are too short. I won't be able to reach things.
It's not
I
just
think
that,
Matty's point. Go on, Jack.
because for me, obviously, I'll Geordie, so I'll take the mick out from having small arms. But I just think as a keeper, like I don't know how he's number one. I just like obviously, did everyone watch the Man City game the other day?
Yeah.
Like some of the saves Premier League keepers should be saving the shots that he's, and that is one of the reasons I did have him in my team. Just as of that City game, I watched the highlights and I just thought positionally it was shocking. I don't know how you can take a keeper that does that. And I know Man City are world class teams, don't get us wrong, but I just think positionally as a keeper, it's not what
I
you
think
want.
as a shot stopper, he's just you can't really defend him. I think Matty's point about his distribution was probably crucial to us because sometimes with our defence in Southgate's style of play, we really do struggle just getting it away from the defenders and into the midfield and then pushing it upfield. So I think him booting the balls forward or playing it to a midfielder, it can just help push the team forward. Whereas the likes of Stones and Maguire will just pass it around the back for countless, just like 5 minutes.
I
Just
think
pass
that's
it
why he
around the
fits
back.
in because obviously Southgate plays such a high line as well. I think that's another reason I could have put Pickford in because obviously when it's up, we'll play so high. And I think that's another thing. But for me, I just he didn't put. I just think there's better keepers than him. I think
So,
he's past his sell-by days.
so Matty, who would be your third choice? We haven't heard that yet.
So I've went Henderson, Pickford, and Nick Pope.
So is that all of us picking Nick Pope?
I think.
I'll pick Nick Pope.
Yeah, I'll pick Nick.
He's my number one.
So
Yeah,
it was in the news earlier that he may miss the Euros because he's gone to get some sort of surgery on his knee or had some injections or something in his knee. So if he's not right, who would you take instead of Pickford? Not Pickford, Pope, sorry. Who would you take instead of Pope?
So I would.
Darlow.
Sam Johnston.
Yeah.
No, it'd be Darlow.
I think Sam Johnston would get a position at a mid-table Premier League club in the summer. Even though West Brom have gone down, I think he's going to get sold.
I'm tempted to agree with you there, Andy, but it's my clear favouritism towards Carl Darlow, and I think this could be the year. He may not play a single minute, but him going to that training camp means he gets a transfer away from us in the summer, which he needs to better his career.
I don't think it's even favouritism. I think it's just an absolute no-brainer. If you can't take Pope, take Darlow. He's a
We're
good
not talking
keeper.
about furthering his career, though. We're talking about picking our best possible team for the England squad for the Euros.
He's probably the best England keeper as a fourth choice, really, that he's got. Like,
at the end of the day,
who's going to take
if
Scott
you
Carson?
want to talk about delivery, Mathew before with Pickford, Darlow, on par with Pickford probably for those long balls. He offers something that the team needs, that Southgate needs. I have no idea why. I have no idea why he hasn't been called up already.
I
I'll rate
disagree on
Darlow.
distribution, mind. Like
I'll
half
rate
the
Darlow.
time when we were watching Newcastle games, he was picking out Steve Bruce on the sideline. It wasn't finding. I know it's Joe Linton and his touch is like a double-decker bus, but if that ball goes near him, he stands more of a chance of it going out of play. Like Darlow for me is a brilliant shot stopper. He again, like the Johnson situation, lacked a defence in front of him, and that's
Do you
why I
not
can
see
see
that
Andy
like
taking Johnson.
do you
Yeah.
not see that an experience as a keeper though? Because he spends half the time on the bench, and obviously when he gets his chance, he does deliver. But
Yeah,
obviously,
it's just
for
getting
me,
that
I
chance.
just think he hasn't had a full on. Obviously, when he was in the championship, yeah, he had a full season. For me, he's still a championship keeper.
To be fair,
He's
for
proved,
a
he
plus for
has
Darlow,
proved it, but
it is the Euros. It's a competition in which it goes to extra time, it goes to penalties. Darlow is probably one of the best keepers I know. Who's good at their saving penalties? To be honest, I don't know many better keepers.
He's the only goalkeeper to
than
save
him.
a Bruno Fernandes penalty. I will go with
that
Bruno
hasn't been
Fernandes,
taken.
but still.
Well, I could name a better keeper on penalties, like, but he's not England. But Tim Krul, I just thought he was. I
There's
just
no
when
better
you
England
mentioned
keeper.
that, I didn't think. Uh,
I agree there's no better
yes and
England
no.
goalkeepers than those 4. Well, realistically 5 if you put Sam
5.
Johnson in there, because
Yeah.
they're the pretty much only choices in the Premier League that are English that have played like more games than one.
I just don't think Darlow's got. He's always got a mistake in him. I think you could have like a Rob Green moment and blunder the
Oh,
whole thing.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's
I
his
don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
if you want to talk about his biggest weakness, he's just so error prone.
You could probably say the same for Pickford. Pope, realistically, because Burnley are solo on the table, like they've had multiple issues. Like I'll bring it up a little bit later on when we get the defence. But Pope has been at fault for multiple goals for Burnley. Yes, he's kept out countless attempts from other teams, but he's been quite error prone this season. For me, though, if he wants experience and somebody who's not going to get played as a third choice goalkeeper, Ben Foster of Watford, he'll get the views on YouTube for the GoPros and everything in the goal, watching them in the crowd and everything, getting the behind the scenes. And he's got the experience from those back when Capello was manager, Hodgson going to the Brazil World Cup. He's been there and done it. Do you take him for experience, or do you leave him at home thinking, no, he's too old, he'll never get a chance, why bother?
I think he's past it. Come on.
I think
Too
he's
old.
not.
I think
Plays
it's
in
a
the
nice
Championship.
thought,
It's a
but
different level
he's
of
past
football.
it.
It was just an idea, you know. Like the
I'm
games like
sorry,
the
shoot me
Euros is
down.
just testing things.
I'm very sorry. But yeah, I think he's past it. Come on. We've got better keepers than him in England.
That's what I get. So if you don't want to take Darlow, which, you know, to most England managers, England stops at Liverpool, so he wouldn't even look at Darlow, in my opinion, when Southgate's picking the team. So if he takes
No,
Johnson,
Southgate won't.
if he takes Johnson and puts him in, fair enough. But who would then be that choice, just in case that somebody gets injured? Because you've got the likes of Tom Heaton, barely played a minute. The other lad who played in goal for Burnley yesterday, I can't remember his name, but he played well-ish against Sheffield United. So there is options, but they're not experienced options. So I think we've had to have picked the 3 best goalkeepers that there is. If Pope's injured, picking Henderson, Pickford, and Johnson are probably the only 3 shouts that you will get.
Yeah, I think with
I mean,
England, especially in terms of goalkeepers, like it's you know who the 3 or 4 goalkeepers are, but everyone's got a different opinion on who's number 1.
I mean, you're not going to really rotate goalkeepers that much throughout the competition. I actually could see Darlow even being on the bench, possibly like to be brought on for the penalties instead of whoever Southgate decides to pick as the number 1, whether it be Dean Henderson or Nick Pope, probably.
Yeah, he could. He might do the famous, like Jack mentioned before, Tim Krul coming on in goal for Holland. Can't remember who it was against. Was it Costa Rica in the World Cup in Brazil? And he won the penalty shootout for Holland. So you never know. Should we go on to the more controversial
Yeah.
picks of the defenders?
I think we shall. Shall we head on to defenders? Andy, do you want to lead? Who would you take?
I'll lead. So, right backs, I've gone with Reece James, Alexander Arnold, and Kyle Walker.
I'm just going to say
with
straight
John
away,
Stone.
I completely agree with Andy there on right backs. 110%.
Completely.
100%. All 3 exactly the same.
Reece James, Kyle Walker,
And Trent.
and Trent. Nah. I can't. What? How are you taking Reece James?
Well, he's a Champions League finalist. He's been quality for Chelsea. He's been great defensively. He's got himself in a Champions League position as well.
He fits a Southgate style of play as well. Trent, as long as he's like a brilliant attacking player, he pushes forwards, leaves the gap in defence. Reece James is the player that fills that gap and does the defending. You get the same in Walker, and Walker gives you the centre-back coverage if you need it.
Yeah.
I think you'd maybe play Arnold in a back 5 with Walker as the right centre-back. Possibly.
I think it's a nice thought, but I think for Southgate's style of play, I don't think Trent Alexander-Arnold works in right back. I think, like Ben says, he just pushes way too far forward, which is brilliant for like offensive play, but just not for a
Well, like I said, in the
Southgate.
back
Not one.
five, I think you'd be more suited to that with Kyle Walker covering, obviously having right back experience.
Matty, I
Coming
You know
in,
heard
how
you
I
say
allowing
in the background there.
Arnold to take
Yeah,
forward.
Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
yeah, Andy, how are you leaving him out?
I just don't rate him highly. He's good. He's a good right back. I just don't rate him higher than any of the three I've chosen. I mean, Kyle Walker, he's got himself to a Champions League final. He's won 2 trophies already this season. Alexander Arnold, obvious reasons. He's great at set pieces. He's great across with the ball. He's got an immense amount of passing ability. I just Wan-Bissaka is just he's a good defender. Essentially, we've got quite a few.
That's
Quite a
like
few of them.
another option really on the right back. Like you can sort of switch it up. Like we've got an all-out attacker in obviously Trent. You've got sort of that balance with Walker, and then the defense. You've obviously got Wan-Bissaka. Like you've got three
Yeah,
completely different right backs right there.
exactly.
What's
Yeah,
the point in taking Walker and James when they're like relatively going to offer you exactly the same? If you want to make a change in a game, like a complete change in style, like Wan-Bissaka is going to offer you that. What's Reece James going to offer you that Kyle Walker doesn't? Or
what?
well, yeah,
Well, Reece James doesn't drop into a back five. I don't
Yeah,
think.
no,
I think
I,
Matty's got
I,
that
I
mixed
think
up.
has
I
actually
agree with you
recently.
entirely on Kyle Walker because he offers a great deal of versatility. But I think in terms of Reece James and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who in comparison to Trent and Kyle Walker are a lot more defensive.
What about
But I
Kieran
just
Trippier?
think,
That's a good
yeah,
shout. Kieran Trippier. He's just won La
he is a
Liga.
good shout.
He's played really well.
I've got him. I've got him in my squad.
Who are you not taking the Jack? Are you taking 2 or are you taking 3?
Reece James. I'm taking three, so I've took Kieran Trippier, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Kyle Walker.
It's a good shout. I've got him as an honourable mention that I would have taken.
For me, I
I
just think
think,
obviously Reece James. Obviously I'm going on youth here. I just think Trent, he's had the experience in the World Cup. I think Kyle Walker's got the experience, and I think Kieran Trippier, now he's moved to La Liga, he's got 2 different leagues to bind off. That's why I've chucked him in. I just
And he
think
gives a
Reece
great
James, and
moment
he's young.
in the World Cup.
Don't get us wrong, he's in my reserves. Like I was really close to picking him, but for me, the quality of right backs that we have, I just couldn't have chucked them in.
it is a position that we excel in as a national team. Really, it's hard. It's hard to decide. Like, I mean,
Whatever used to
everyone,
as well.
even though I'm giving like Reece James flack, he's still world class.
Take
Kieran Trippier,
Oh yeah.
world class.
would you say he's realistically had a good season though, Trippier?
Yeah.
if
no,
it
I
wasn't
would.
for his ban for was
No,
it
for
gambling or something that was he
Yeah,
didn't
I
play a
think
few
that was
games.
fair.
I reckon he has played
Uh,
reasonably well.
He's only
I
got
think
66
Trippier's a good
this
shout,
season in
but
35 games. I'm just
when you talk about when Mathew said before about changing up a style of play, say Southgate comes up against a team like France, and he just doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to leave them gaps in defence. He wants to sit back on them. Why would you not have somebody like Wan-Bissaka or even Reece James, if you want to say Reece James? Why would you have Trippier when Trippier pretty much offers you the exact same kind of like that wing back play, like running upfield, whipping the balls in that Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I think Trent Alexander-Arnold arguably does better.
So one thing I agree with Testo, I think that Trent, if he doesn't go, Trippier's in the squad because Trippier does the defending part that Trent doesn't
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, no.
100%.
because Trent has that little bit more gusto, a little bit more ability to play elsewhere, for me that puts him ahead of Trippier. Right, Trippier might be good. He's got 6 assists in La Liga this season. He's got no goals to show for it. So he's clearly turned more provider, but it's his first full season in La Liga. He's got to adjust. And surely, if you're playing like a player like Suarez, like sometimes Suarez changes his style of play in games, so you're never going to have the same striker. But when you've got consistently Harry Kane to aim at, because let's face it, none of us left him out. if somebody's whipping a ball into him, you want Trippier in there for how much experience he had doing it in the Premier League and when he was at Tottenham. But I still personally believe Trent can offer that now in more abundance than he can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we little segue to left backs? Because I think we're just going to have exactly the same. All of them are going to have the same. I think Matty mentioned
I think
earlier
everyone's gonna
he
have the
has
same
Shaw and
number one.
Chilwell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just two.
It makes
Yeah,
more
pretty
sense
much.
to have
It does.
Who would
the
you
extra
pick
right
as the
back.
starting one?
Luke Shaw.
I would go Luke Shaw too.
Yeah, I've said Luke
Yeah,
Shaw
I'd
as
say
well.
Luke Shaw.
Like Shaw's kept 10 clean sheets a season, fair enough. There's a difference between Man United and Chelsea over the season of when they've had their ups and downs. They've both had 5 assists, so they can do that more. Chilwell's had more goals, but you see Shaw staying back more. Chelsea say the player pushes him on, Chilwell sits at the Shaw sits at the back, which is what we need.
He's great at sitting in the back, but he's also great at driving the ball forward when we need it as well.
Yeah,
Getting off that ball.
but like you were saying before, he doesn't leave those gaps. Like similar to what you were saying about Trippier, he can push forward, but he doesn't push forward to the point like Trent, where it helps you offensively, but it leaves gaping holes in your defence.
It does. To be honest, Shaw, for me, is almost one of the most outstanding players in the Premier League this season. The way he's changed
he's
from...
popped off.
He was nothing
Especially
at the
from
start.
coming back from injury.
He's hungry, to be fair, like, isn't he? Like, he wants to do well, like, so.
Like, he was... People started to like take the mick out of him on social media and everything for returning from injury, looking a little bit overweight. You look at him now to what he was when he returned from injury, looks exactly the same. So it doesn't matter what you look like going into this England team, as long as you've got that ability and drive, you can get somewhere. Like, who did he score that goal against? Was it City? To put Man United 1-0 up. And that bit of determination is what you need.
Yeah.
And realistically, going into that Croatia game, he has to be in that starting 11 because he can tear apart Croatia's team. I think they'll go with like Vida or Vishalko if he's still playing, and he can abuse them if he's pushing forward.
I agree with that one, like, easy.
Yeah, I think it's good that we're saying we've got such strong fullbacks, because in terms of if we want to move on to centre backs, I think there are good options. And they've played brilliant in the Premier League, but as soon as they play for England, I can't see any of these centre backs. Even the people that you know who I'm talking about, Stones and Maguire. Who
Yeah,
everyone's going to.
We've all got those two.
we'll all have Stones,
Yeah,
Maguire, and then
we're
it'll be
gonna
different
see
after.
flapping. We're going to see them flapping when it comes to the Euros. I'm sorry,
I mean,
but
maybe
straight
not.
away.
Maguire's had a lot more experience, being like a captain for Man United. I think he'd be good at leading that back line. I mean, he couldn't lead the full team. But he definitely do a good job at leading the back line. And I mean, my picks, I've got Ben Godfrey, James Tatowski, and yeah.
See, I agree completely with Stones and Maguire. However,
Yeah,
soon as you mention Ben Godfrey, I still think he is too young and has come off the bench too many times to be a consistent player. Like, I wouldn't take him at all, but yet again, I would then take Tyrone Mings and Michael Keane. Like,
I'd agree with Tyrone Mings.
Keane's a solid shout. Keane is a solid shout, and he always has been.
I had to channel my inner Southgate for that pick because I wanted to take Ezri Konsa so badly. But he's, again, if I'm being the same judgmental person that I was before with saying Godfrey was too young, you've got to apply the same thing and say Konsa's too young.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mings is a decent shout. I don't think many people will see him as a good shout, or many people will even think of him. But he's played decent for England before.
I think
he's in my squad.
I think with Mings as well. I think when he's played for Aston Villa, but definitely for me, I think his experience. I think it'll be good for him to get in the England squad, but for me, he's definitely the third strongest centre back we've got. I don't think that's what we're massively kicking in. I don't think we've got a massive strong centre back row, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
I wouldn't really start him. I think even if we are playing a back three, like we were saying before, I'd drop Walker into it. If we're playing a back
Yeah,
three,
yeah.
I wouldn't put Mings in. I'd keep him on the bench.
I agree.
I'd maybe rotate him into the squad if we're playing a weaker team. But if we're playing a big game, I wouldn't want to be starting Tyrone Mings.
Yeah.
Would you say maybe Connor Cody might be a shout in the back five?
If I was Southgate, I would take him.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I personally wouldn't. He suits Southgate's system down to the ground as playing in the centre with Walker or maybe the likes of Stones or Maguire either side. Because he's a little bit slower, but what he's done for Wolves over the last couple of years is tremendous. He's been that cornerstone and the backbone of that skeleton to take them forward. So could we have him in there? But I personally wouldn't. But I think Southgate, come tomorrow lunchtime, will have him in his squad.
Yeah,
I think
I'd.
he's been too a bit. I think he's been too sloppy for Wolves this year compared to the year before.
For
don't know if
Wolves,
that's just me.
definitely. But I mean, they've had a bit of an odd season. Wolves.
I
Yeah.
just think for me, I think that England, you've got to go with your strongest team in consistency in the league you're playing in, and for me, consistency, I don't think Cody even touches
Who are you
the
saying
level
then,
for
Jack?
me.
All together, like who are you taking?
I've got the same four. Well, I've got four down. I've got Harry Maguire, John Stones, I've got Tyrone Mings. But I've actually took as a young person just to try and build his hopes up is Tamori, who is at AC Milan at the minute.
It's a good shout.
Yeah, I
think me personally, I think when I'm getting 17 caps in it, I'm going off a different league, and especially for them being top of the league at some stage of the Serie A, I just think you need to push them, get them in, just to give them that bit. I'm not saying chuck them into the squad. I'm not saying, oh, you're starting every game. No, you just give them that little bit of big buzz. Yes, I'm in the England squad.
I think he's a good shout. I think if the Euros did go ahead last year rather than this year, Tomori's name would have been popping up more and more and more, and it would have been circulating around people saying that he should start, and not start, but he should be taken.
I agree.
But I think since going to AC, obviously people forget about him a little bit, but he's definitely a good shout.
I'm not going to let Andy get away with this, right? Sorry, Jack, for interrupting. But Andy mentioned James Tarkowski.
Yeah, Andy, you did. The Burnley boys.
So you said with Nick Pope before that they've been sloppy. Consistency wise, you look at James Tarkowski, you look at Ben Mee. They have been solid in the past over some games, but they can be torn apart as soon as you put a bit of quality in front of them, which every international team's going to look for. They're going to get destroyed. Like if we get all the way to the final, which people are predicting to do, and we're going to play France, look at how pathetic both of them were for Alan St. Maximin. Like, as much as I love the fella, the bloke's like glass. You touch him, he goes down, he's on the floor crying. Like, Mbappe is going to be running at you. You have Benzema to defend against. Like, how are they both going to deal with it? Like, I understand the same could be said for Mings, because he's at times against like City and things like that, he's fell apart. And the same with Stones and Maguire, but I would be much more confident with them instead of Tarkowski or Mee.
Yeah, I mean, he's been consistently good at getting the high stats in terms of clearing the ball, headed on, normal. I know, but he's solid. I wouldn't play him definitely wouldn't play him in a centre back partnership with like one other centre back. Definitely not. I'd maybe play him in a three if you had to. Maybe if like Kyle Walker was injured or.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Fair enough.
I wouldn't play him in a two.
Matty, who would you take?
Centre backs, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had Maguire, Stones. Who else I have? Mings and Cody.
That's good. Thank God you stayed away from Eric Dyer.
Yeah, I was tempted, because I knew he can bang a free kick in, you know, if you need him. But it's just a penalty waiting to happen, really, isn't it? Like, you just can't trust him in the back.
He's like
Say bang a
Stephen
free kick
Taylor.
in, we've got so many other better players to bang free kicks in.
But I just remember that one against Germany a few years back in the friendlies.
It was good. And the penalty against Colombia.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that
Don't-
was a good
don't even.
penalty.
Yeah, man, your mate is tempted to put him in away.
Oh, I'll avoid it.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about his attacking qualities, not his centre-back
He
qualities.
might not be coming in. He might not be coming in terms of centre back, but midfield. Is anyone taking him?
I'm not taking him in midfield.
No one's
I'm not
taking Eric
taking him in
Dyer.
general.
Better options.
He wouldn't even be in my under 23s, even if you could put him in the under 23 squad. I think he's just absolutely awful.
Right.
I think we've got
Don't
loads of
really
options in the midfield. I don't think he.
Ben.
Yeah, I'll go with the
if you're
midfield.
not taking him, who you having?
There's a few that stand out. Like, you're taking Jordan Henderson. Even though he might not be fully fit, you're still going to take him. And then,
I was a bit reluctant because he hasn't been fully fit, but I have taken him.
yeah. Then I would go for Mason Mount, Declan Rice, Phil Foden, Jude Bellingham, and James Ward-Prowse as more of a centre midfield.
Perfect. In my opinion, perfect.
That's a good lineup. Although you missed Grealish, did you?
I've put Grealish as more of a wide player, so got him a little bit later on. But
Oh, right, that makes
I've
sense.
only picked like 3 forwards. I've just left it as strikers, so I've put like wide midfielders as a section for myself. But I've got Grealish in there as well, who could play in the centre. Same with Lingard.
Oh, right, fair enough.
So
Yeah, because I had Grealish and Lingard. I had all your picks, Grealish and Lingard. And
So-
I've got them in the midfield. I've got a couple who could say as midfield, and I've got them in the forwards.
yeah, I just took the option of putting them in midfield. But then when I hear Jack say there, Phillips, and I thought myself there, James Maddison. For me, they both deserve to be in there. But Mason Mount
Maddison doesn't.
has broke through so much, and so has Foden. I can't not. Like, Bellingham would be my one to go. Because you need Ward-Prowse in there for creativity.
Yeah, I think Ward-Prowse and Bellingham.
Madison doesn't get close for me.
Why,
I mean,
Andy?
we've got so many better options in that, especially
Yeah,
in that
role.
field of the park.
At the end of the day, if you're taking Grealish and Foden and Mount, why would you need Madison?
I'd take Willock over Madison, if I'm being honest.
It is a good shout,
But
Joe
again,
Willock.
why do you need 4 of them? Why do you need 4 of the same kind of player? They're going to be doing the same job.
It depends on how tired we get.
Do you really need 4?
Because for me, I think if one of them 3 get injured, obviously for me, Declan Rice is straight in for Jordan Henderson if he gets injured. For me, it's Phil Foden and Mason Mount in the middle all day, every day. Like, I wouldn't even be starting Bellingham, Grealish.
Would you play Mount? Would you play Mount alongside Foden? Would you?
Yes. 100%.
I think Mount's got the versatility for it. But I don't know. I think if you play,
if you're playing Mount, I think you want Mount further forward.
Yeah, I think Mount flourishes when you're letting him go further forward. So I'd probably play Mount instead of, or bring him on for Foden. But if we're talking about who we're playing alongside, you want Bellingham or you want Ward-Prowse. You want somebody with a little bit more stability. Even if you bring on White and having him sit a bit higher than you usually would.
If we're talking about who we're starting, it's no brainer for me. It's Jordan Henderson and Jude Bellingham.
See, I wouldn't start Bellingham.
I wouldn't start Bellingham either.
I think he's the only, well, not only, but the best box-to-box midfielder we've got. I think Henderson.
I'd say Ward-Prowse can give him a run for his money. Honestly,
he can. Ward-Prowse not played in the Champions League. I think Jude Bellingham showed his quality against the best of the best.
He was good against City. He was very good against City. But for me, it's got to be, if Jordan Henderson's fit, you play Henderson every day. Then there's Mason Mount.
Yeah, of course.
And Phil Foden. Like, I completely agree with Jack. But if Henderson's not there, you play Declan Rice.
Yeah.
Do you not think that would leave us a little bit weak in midfield though, Ben? Mount and Foden alongside each other. Do you not think teams would take advantage of that?
If Henderson or Rice sits at the back, you've then got those two who can push forward. Like Mount did he play centre mid? Who's against? Was it? Did he play it against Leicester in the FA Cup? It was one of the last few games of the season. He went missing playing centre midfield, which is my big risk here. But you don't want to fall into the trap that Southgate always does of playing two centre defensive midfielders in a 4-3-3.
I wouldn't play
or something
centre
like that.
defensive midfield, but you want a box to box. The thing is, you're saying you've got Jordan Henderson, or if Henderson's not fit, Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips. You've got somebody of that standard. Henderson's arguably a bit better than both of them, obviously.
Yeah.
And you're saying it can let your two midfielders, Mount and Foden in your case, push forward. I think if you sent a defensive midfielder is N'Golo Kante, it can let your other two midfielders push forward.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about somebody of a quality of around Jordan Henderson, Calvin Phillips, I don't think you can be letting both your midfielders push forward like that.
See,
you need
my
a bit more
mindset
stability in there.
with Henderson is the fact that he's played at centre back for half of this season. Like, he's gonna have a defensive head. He's not gonna be this Jordan Henderson of last year that was, I'll just push forward and see if I can get a goal for myself when I'm winning the title. But he's gonna sit that further back. He's gonna help the defence, and he's that more of a rock.
No, he'll definitely help the defence, but I think we'll just get dominated in midfield. You've got strong midfields. You've got Spain. You've got France. Like, you just get absolutely dominated. Your possessions, I wouldn't even want to see him. Honestly, I just think you need more stability in there. You need somebody like Bellingham, or you need somebody like Ward-Prowse, so you can just keep a hold of the ball. I'd take him. I'd definitely take him.
For me, when you say stability in a player, I don't know how you can turn away from Mason Mount getting player of the season, and you've seen Jude Bellingham. He's only had, as you were going back to, is it Tyrone? How he's only had one season in Dortmund, and you took him straight to start 11. For me, I obviously Mason Mount has had experience in the Premier League. He's had 2 or 3 years.
I think
experience.
it's more for him.
No, I think Mount's absolutely class. I just don't think he's the type of player that you want in that midfield. I think he flourishes when he's pushing forward, and if I was Southgate, I'd be keeping him to push forward. I'd want him to play that role, and I'd want him to get used to playing that role. I wouldn't want to confuse him half the time, telling him to play box up to box and occasionally sit back. I'd want him to know that he's pushing forward, that he's playing behind Kane, that he's getting into the box.
Yeah.
So I'd want to use him in that way.
Playing in the centre midfield. I mean, I've got Grealish as the centre attacking mid in my squad. I think he's the best calm we've got in England. I've got Mount.
Over Foden?
Over Foden, yeah. I'd put him over Foden.
Really? You rate Grealish over Foden?
I rate Grealish over Foden.
I would go Foden, mind.
That's big. That is, I cannot think of many people that would agree with you on that.
Well, I mean, Grealish has got the most assists in the Premier League for an English player. I think I'd play. It's between Foden and Mount for the left wing position for me. I think fitting them in there would be a better suit for England.
Yeah, I mean that's equally viable if you want to talk about formation. They'd both play really well there.
Matty, who would your ones be?
I went with Rice, Phillips, Mount Henderson, Foden, Ward-Prowse, and Jude Bellingham.
So we're very much, all of 5 of us, on the same lines of who we take. It's just whether you take Calvin Phillips. So a couple of us let him out, a couple of put him in.
I think more so than who you take, though, it's a question of how you'd use them.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about Foden. I think we'd all use Mount in, like, Jack said he'd use him in one way. I'd said I'd use him in another. Andy says he'd push him out onto the wing. Like, we'd all take him, but obviously we all use him in just completely different ways.
Yeah, I agree with Jack in the exact way I'd play with him. Like, me and Jack have very, very similar football ideas with how we've coached for the last few years. But for me, just looking at Croatia's potential midfield of Kovacic, Modric, and Brozovic, I reckon all 3 have a better chance around them with having Henderson, Mount, and Foden than with Bellingham. I think Bellingham will get lost because Luka Modric has got that too much experience, and Foden's got that youth and ability where he can take it away and do the different things that Modric can't cope with. Like, he's 35 now, Modric. He's only going to play it for his last few games, I reckon, and then he's either internationally retiring or fully. So
But
for me,
Bellingham's
it's
got
got to
that.
be him. I wouldn't take Bellingham.
Bellingham's got that experience in the Champions League. He's shown he can do it against the best of Europe and like against the PSGs and the Man Cities. I mean, I think Man City is the best team in Europe at the moment, and he's shown with goals he can play against that level of quality. I think
Like,
it's
my
the best
issue
box to
with
box we've
Bellingham,
got. I think it's who you need to run back the ball, win it back, and drive it on Grealish or Mount.
my issue with Bellingham is that he's gone missing in the Bundesliga. Like, he might perform against City over two legs. I think he was probably the best player on the pitch at the Etihad for the second leg. Or first, I can't remember which one it was, but at the Etihad he played unbelievable. But if you're playing Augsburg or Freiburg away and you aren't showing, like Giovanni Reina is playing better than you, like, something about him doesn't spring consistency to me. He's things like he's a big game player, which you might need to take. But if you're going in to a game against Scotland, how's he going to feel then? Czech Republic. All games that we need to do are getting 3 points in this group. If we get through the group, it only gets harder from there. So if we're talking two legs where you can see the future, he can't see the future in the groups because he doesn't know how they're going to go. And I personally think that's the same with him in the Bundesliga. He disappears against teams that he doesn't have like more idea and doesn't have the experience of playing against them before. I know it's a
So that's
big
when you go
controversial
back to,
saying.
It's for argument's sake. Say he's not the best fit, but in that position, I still stand by the fact of not putting Mount that far back. I think if you couldn't put Bellingham there, I think you'd go with James Ward-Prowse. I think you need someone like that just to get the ball forward. I don't think Mount, because in that position you want to be tracking back. I don't think Mount's
I think
the best
Mount,
player to be tracking
honestly,
back.
I think Mount could play there, and I think he could play there well. But I think if we take him to the Euros and we let him play in a forward role behind the striker, and we let him get forward and we teach him to do that, I think he could excel just massively. I think he could probably help in winning the tournament. So I'm not trying to say Mason Mount couldn't play box to box, because I believe he could, and I believe Chelsea have played him like that occasionally over the season. Maybe not so much towards the end, but they have. And I think he could play there well. But we've got such a better chance of winning this tournament if we let a player like Mason Mount, who's had the end of the season Mason Mount's had, just push forward and try and get himself a couple of goals and a couple of assists.
I agree with that completely. Like, I think Bellingham should also be used as a bit more of a wild card, definitely in those bigger games. I do not think he should start though.
No, even in my case, I'd have Ward-Prowse over him.
I would play a Hendo in that Ward-Prowse role and have Rice playing in the CDM. Foden sort of like in like that sort of free roam position, like comes
Do you
up.
think he's that type of player though?
I don't personally.
Me personally, I think Jordan Henderson, especially like I'm going back to Ben's point, yeah, especially with this year when we're going back to the centre back role, playing in the back four role for Liverpool. Do you think he's capable of going? Like for me, I think he's just more of a holding. Obviously, when he won the Champions League with Liverpool, he played holding. He played it left, right, and he drove with it. That's for me, and especially after this season. I don't think he can play the general centre mid role. I think he's got to be one of them, just sitting just in front of the centre back role.
You got to look at Fabinho though. Like when Liverpool are at their full strength, I'm pretty sure Hendo starts sort of alongside Fabinho.
He does, yeah.
That sort of, like box to box sort of role. So I don't see the problem with having that. Personally.
I think because of Liverpool's style of play, though, with their wing backs, he doesn't have to be as creative. But if we're not really playing with like we say, Alexander Arnold doesn't get the opportunity to push forward for England as much as he does for Liverpool. He doesn't get to be as creative because we have our wing backs, our full-backs or whatever we're playing sit back a bit more, our midfield's going to have a lot more creativity. So if you say Hendo could play centre mid or about there for Liverpool, I think, yeah, but he's not having to have the same amount of creativity he'd be forced into having for England. So I think he could probably hack it for Liverpool. But in terms of England, I just don't think he's got the ability to play there.
That's fair. That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Just a player that I
Who
put in
was
my
it?
squad, because I know I
Go
said
on.
it. Jesse Lingard. Yeah, I know I put him
you
as
were
centre
saying you were going
midfielder.
to play him on the wing.
I would
I've got him
take
in my
him,
squad
but I
too.
could play him out wide. I could play him centre midfield. He gives you that versatility. He's revitalised his whole career going to West Ham. And it's whether he's done enough to get in. Go
For
on.
me, do you think a half a season proves that he can get into the England squad? That's the reason I haven't put him in. I just don't think a half a.
He was in it already, and he was already playing awful. So
I mean, not
He's
just for
a
his like
risk.
football ability, but like he just he lights up the room when he goes in it. Like I think him being in that squad, it'll lift England's spirits, and maybe in times where they might need it most. And he's definitely a great football player. He's seen that he's a winner. He's won the FA Cup. He's won the Europa League. And I think he should definitely be on the plane.
I do agree with you, Jack. I do agree, but I just had to put him in. For me, he's shown more than Phillips.
I just think that the click with, I think he's playing so good for West Ham because he's the standout player. But when he goes to Man U, he's just an average player. He's like in the middle. Do you know what I mean? I just think that click. It's just he didn't get us wrong. He was good. I did think about him, but I just think there's other players who I've got on the next. I just think they're better than him.
Yeah.
Ben, you were saying you were going to play him out wide. We've got good wingers.
Yeah,
like,
we
we've
do.
got some of the best wingers in the world. And if you're saying you want to play Jesse Lingard out wide, that means that you're starting him over.
I know.
Sancho or Rashford.
I mean, for me, we don't have cover right midfield, and we'll find out when we go on for it. We might be like going straight into it after this. But for me, Jadon Sancho is your go-to right midfielder. Who you go after absolutely. That? For me, Greenwood could get there, but personally, I would choose Lingard and put Lingard out wide. Let him do his whatever he wants because of the more experience. Put him in there instead of Greenwood.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't think Greenwood's all that.
I don't.
He's outperformed Greenwood.
There yet.
I don't think
he's more
Greenwood
of a
is.
striker than a right midfielder as well.
Personally. I think, Jack, when you're saying about Lingard, saying is half a season enough, Lingard's played better in this half a season than Greenwood has the full season.
You reckon?
So, I think so. Yeah, I don't think Greenwood's there yet. I like him, and I hope he does.
If Greenwood went to West Ham and played in his position, do you not think he would do the same?
I think Greenwood would go missing. He has in games for Man United. Like he does appear in some games, and he just comes out and plays really well. But for me,
I haven't got. Obviously, I've got Greenwood in my team, but he's not starting.
He's played.
I just think Lingard and Green. I don't. For me, I just think it's the drive of the young. I just think the way he plays is better than Lingard. Like, I think that year that he had out not playing. Obviously, I know his drive to come back to playing. Don't get us wrong, he's played absolutely phenomenal for West Ham, but I just think they're two different players. And for me, I don't think a half a season is what you can just go, oh yeah, you're on the plane. Whereas for Man U, yeah, he's had his off games, had the on games, but he's done what he's done.
It's not just half a season though; it's the second half of the season. If you look
business
at
end,
the England squad, you want form, you want that good run of play because he's come off the back of a really good second half of the season. He can bring that into this tournament, I think.
If we want to talk about form and kind of like on the topic of wingers, is anyone here starting Sterling?
I'm taking him and I am,
yes.
yes.
To be starting Sterling. I'm taking him
You've got to say you're
reluctantly.
going to take him. It's Sterling. You've got it. You've got
I'm
to
taking him reluctantly. He's won the EFL. He's won the Premier League. He's won. Well,
no,
could win
Man
Champions
City
League.
have won it, but Sterling, he
Man
hasn't
City won
done
it.
much really.
No, but he's in the squad. He's got the medal.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I
really
take him
don't
on
rate him at
starting.
all, though. Especially for
You
England.
take
And
him
that
and
is really
start.
surprising for
Yeah.
you, Ben.
You take him and start, Ben.
Testo, who's your forwards in? We'll jump straight onto the forwards now.
If we want to talk about wingers, I'd probably,
Yeah.
if we're talking about who I'm starting, I'd have Rashford on the left.
I
and
agree
I'd
with
have,
that.
Yeah, and I'd have Sancho on the right. I'd probably, like Ben, it's tough between Greenwood and Lingard, but I'd probably have Lingard covering on the right and Sterling on the left. But I'm not starting Sterling. I think at the beginning of the season, when I seen how Harry Kane was playing with Son and Harry Kane was dropping back, I just had visions of that happening with him and Sterling, and I could just see us just bossing the tournament with it. But with the season Sterling's out, I just could not
Sterling's
start.
never even been good for England, though. Like, I don't think that would ever
Yeah.
happen realistically. I think the best wingers
I
to
like
go
to
for would be
dream.
Mason Mount and Jadon Sancho.
You wouldn't even start Rashford.
I was torn
Really?
between Mount and Rashford, but I don't think you can leave Mount out at the starting 11. I think you've got to fit him in. I think he fits in really well with left wing position. I think you'd bring Rashford on off the bench because he's always been really consistent for England.
Yeah. Hold on, Andy. Just going back to that, you said you can't start without Mount. Have you started? If you're saying you're starting 11, have you started Foden?
I haven't started Foden. No, I'd put him on the bench.
Oh,
I was torn
Really?
between Jadon Sancho and Foden for the right wing position, but I don't think you could have a Foden and a Mount playing on the wing. I mean, maybe you could. Maybe you could work with that.
Can that be much in the same season?
But... Nah, for me, it was Foden or Mount, and I'll rate Mount higher. I think
Not
maybe
even
Foden.
joking, my jaw's just hit the floor with your comment. I mean, I don't know how you can start him.
I mean, Pep seems to not find a way to start him.
Pep's managing the best team in the world.
it's Pep. Pep likes to rotate, and he gets the best out of all his players if he does rotate. But Southgate, rotation, like, he didn't do it at Borough and messed it up. He barely rotated the team last year like that. Was it the Panama game? We still played Pickford. We're already through. Pushing it a little bit, but Gateshead players could have at least got a draw out of that game. So if we're talking National League North, anybody can get in there, and he didn't rotate. Caused a couple of issues for fitness going into the next round. Is he going to do that the same way Pep can? The same effectiveness as Pep? I don't think so.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think Foden and Mount are very similar. Realistically, I think they're the same.
I think if you've got room for
type
them,
of player,
you've
same quality of player.
You've got room for him. You've got to have Foden. You've got to have him. Look, fair enough. If he's
I'd play Grealish over Foden in the centre attacking mid position and Mount
and he doesn't
in the
commit
left wing
your
position.
formation. You'd play him in the
Andy,
centre
would
attacking
you-
mid formation, Foden.
No, I'd play Grealish over Foden in that position. I'd play Mount
I just
over him in
cannot
that
believe
left
that.
wing
I
position.
cannot believe
Neither.
that you're like I just.
So
I'm
Andy,
baffled.
What do you see that Grealish gives that Foden doesn't give as much? So why are you picking Grealish over Foden? Like, what do you think he gives that extra that Foden doesn't?
I think Grealish has just been incredible consistently. I know he's had troubles this season, like with injuries and that. But I mean, he's the most, like I said before, he's got the most assists in terms of an English player in the Premier League. I think he's a better ball playing midfielder than Foden. I think Foden might have
But
a
at
bit
the
of
end of the
finesse
day,
and
you've
skill.
got to think Foden's been getting pepped. Foden's been getting rotated for the full season,
I wouldn't.
and he's
play
in a
Foden.
team of world-class players. I think if Foden was in Grealish's position,
But that just shows lack of
playing
experience.
for Aston Villa. No, I don't think it does. I think Grealish, if he was playing for Man City, wouldn't get the amount of minutes Foden's got this season. And I really do
I don't
rate
even think
Grealish.
he would. I think he would be on the bench. I just think, but that's when you're going back to age. I think Foden's age is perfect. I think
Yeah,
getting a
absolutely.
youth person into the squad would greet it. Don't get us wrong, I totally 10% agree with your point. I do think he's a brilliant player, but I just think Foden this year he's been phenomenal. Like he's everything.
I won't argue against that.
He's
I think
21
he's
next
great.
week, and he's playing this well. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no,
No,
I
I
think
won't
Foden's
argue
just
against
good.
that. I just think, I think
Who
personally it's between Foden and Mount, and I think I've just went with Mount in this scenario.
So segueing away from it,
out strikers?
yeah, strikers.
Striker.
I've got two.
I've got 3.
I've
Dwight
got
Gale.
Harry
I've got
Kane.
3.
Who else?
Dwight Gale, Andy Carroll, let's go. 0 goals all tournament, rely on the midfield. Perfect.
Well, actually, I've got 4 technically, but
You've got 4.
technically,
So I've got 2. So I've went for Harry Kane and Danny Ings.
Ooh.
Have you brought Ings?
Yeah, I just think he's a
I'll
goal
rate that.
scorer. I've rated him at Liverpool. I've rated him at
offer something
Southampton.
different.
He's an out and out goal scorer. It's what we want. I'm not saying take him off for Harry Kane, but it's like one of them things, especially if you look for forward, if he's dropping a bit, he hasn't got the energy. Put him on for 20 minutes.
Right, but you're only taking 2 strikers, you say, Jack.
Yeah, but
if Harry Kane gets absolutely halved against Croatia, are you happy having Danny Ings as your only striking option for that full tournament?
I know, but then because obviously that's why I've kept the options so open. You've got obviously Rashford, he play up front, Sterling
Yeah,
play up front.
Play Foden in the false 9.
Yeah, that's why I've tried to build my team. So if he does get injured, you've got other replacements. So you can put Rashford out from the wing into the forward and bring Sterling on. I don't think Danny Ings is one safe, as you do say, he gets off. And you've got like 70 minutes to play or something. You're just like, I wouldn't bring him on just yet. You would bring someone on that's got that experience to fill a role in, such as Rashford, Sterling. But
if we've got a chance of coming up
for
against
me,
Colombia,
he's one of them people you just bring on for 20 minutes. And just
I think as an impact sub, definitely. But in terms of squad rotation, in terms of like looking at potential injuries, I just couldn't.
Southgate does not rotate. That's why I've generally brought them, just for that bit of.
It would be hard to rotate Harry Kane out of the squad for anyone anyway, to be fair.
I mean, yeah, as you say, Harry Kane is probably one of the best England strikers that we've ever had.
He is.
Best striker in the world at the moment.
I'll put him up there. Personally, I think if he stays in England, he's breaking Shearer's record. So I think he will be the greatest striker in Premier League history. One day, he's getting there now. He's almost at those levels. He is going to break through. So you've got to take him. There's no other option. But it's who can work around him the best. I agree with Jack. Ings is a good player. Ings could get in there.
Would you have him?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would go for Calvert-Lewin and Bamford.
I've gone for them
Definitely
too. I've gone with Rashford as well, but you could count as my left winger, so I could leave him out with that.
Mathew, was that you in agreement as well?
I'm saying Ings over Bamford or Calvert-Lewin,
So,
because I think he offers something different.
Would you have 3, Mathew, or would you have 2?
Yeah, I'm bringing 3.
Who's your other one then, other than Ings and Kane?
I've got Calvert-Lewin, Ings, and Harry
Kane. Oh, right, okay, Calvert-Lewin.
I'm saying obviously Calvert-Lewin and
leave Bamford out.
Bamford interchangeable.
But 17
Ings,
goals in the Premier League.
Yeah, Bamford's sensational.
I just think bringing Bamford on the plane. Obviously, he never had an England cap. The pressure might get to him. That's the only thing for me. You kind of just bring someone that hasn't had a cap and just chuck them up. I'm not saying Ben and I have got Harry Kane, but to bring him on for 20 minutes, you'll just be like, wow. I think you'd be more gobsmacked more than playing.
I see your point, right?
That's why I haven't
You've got to start somewhere, I think.
This season he has played absolutely fantastic for Leeds. God.
The thing is, if Harry Kane, like I was saying before, if Harry Kane gets injured against Croatia, somebody comes up and he just halves him, he's out for the tournament. The only player I would feel like most comfortable with having up front for the duration of that tournament, if not Harry Kane, would be Patrick Bamford. He would be the only English striker that I'd feel confident having up front for that full tournament, if not Harry
I just
Kane.
don't think you can argue with that goal start. 17 goals in the Premier League for Leeds.
He's got
Like,
7
Yeah,
assists
it's
as well.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when you're talking about assists, Jack, you were saying before about Rashford having the ability to play up front. Southgate, look, he's never going to change his tactics. We all know he's a bit of a dreadful manager. But realistically, if you want to have somebody like Rashford cut inside, Patrick Bamford's got the ability to play that ball to him.
Just an interesting pick.
Yeah.
Would anybody take Marley Watkins? Not Marley Watkins, that's throwing it by years. Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins. I wouldn't.
I
don't
considered,
know.
but no. I mean, he's had 14 goals in the Prem, but
He's good, I
for
just haven't
Villa as well.
considered him either.
He'd
I
be a good
think
link
he's
up with Grealish,
borderline.
definitely, but he is borderline. He's touching it, isn't he? Really.
If Southgate's
He
going
just
to take
needs
4
Calvert-Lewin to
strikers,
start playing poorly.
he's going to take him over Ings. That's in my personal
I'd
opinion.
take him
I
over
agree.
Ings.
But Danny Ings, for me, I know 2 Evers have picked him, but he disappears. Like, he comes out, he gets a
Again,
ball, he scores it. But in England, you need someone who can recycle the ball well. If you've got Kane,
if
you've
it
got
was
Calvert-Lewin and Bamford, they all do that.
if it was Euro 2020, it wouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
Everyone would have Ings.
100%. But Bamford has
And
been
I
too
don't think
standout.
Paddy Bamford would have even been mentioned. But yeah, come on. If you're looking at form and you're looking at how they've played this season, Jack, you were saying before, it's a major tournament. You want to look at form. You want to look at who's been good in the season that we've just had.
I saw.
You know.
I just think filling someone's boots in an England cap, I just think it's massive.
What I saw
think
on
it's
Bamford yesterday,
absolutely massive.
I think he should be guaranteed on that plane. He was creative. You know, it's West Brom. They were already
Like,
down. But it's the hardest
get us
game to
wrong,
play against somebody who's down.
I've got him on me reserves bit. Like obviously I didn't take 3 people, but I've got Bamford on. I just think for me, I just think it's a hard thing to duck straight in. Like it's your first England cap and you're playing against Croatia on a group stage. For me, I just thought it's the pressure. It's the pressure of the tournament as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
for me,
I know he's
think
had his
this is
injury
the
problems
best
this
chance.
season.
The best chances I've got this year. I just think the pressure would. Don't get us wrong, it might not get to him, but for me, I just think it would get to him. Just being his first cap and how big the tournament's for this year.
Do you not think Callum Wilson would be in the conversation?
I don't.
I know he's had his injury.
No,
he's had his injury
because
problems.
like Ben
but
was saying before, for England, like for whoever's picking the squad, it stops at Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester and Liverpool
but
is the north
no, the
to Southgate.
conversation for us though, like realistically, I know it stops there, but
He's played well.
personally, I mean,
He's carried a team.
he's been one of the most prolific strikers in the Premier League this season, in my opinion. Get him on the ball, he's most likely 9 times out of 10 gonna put it in the back of the net.
When he was fit, he did get a call up for Bournemouth. So I think he could get there.
He does it. Look, could Callum Wilson do it against France?
No.
Could he do it against Italy?
Well, he's not starting.
Fair enough,
Kane's
maybe
starting.
Croatia.
He could do it against everyone in our group.
If you get a ball to him on the edge of the box, it's going in the back of the net. You can bet your money on that. You can bet your house on that. Really.
You've got to look at different options though. Like, yeah, you got Bamford, yeah, you got Kane, but they're very similar style of play. Whereas
Exactly.
they sort of offer something different on those last 20 minutes, say against France, like you're saying. Like we might.
I was mentioning to Ben the other day, I'd have somebody that none of you have mentioned, and I don't think anyone would. I'd have Tammy Abraham, because I think like Matthew's saying about having options. Look, if we're not doing it, if Foden isn't doing it, if Mount isn't doing it, and there's no creativity in that midfield, and for whatever reason Gareth Southgate said, look, Jordan Henderson, Jordan Pickford, sorry, hoof this up, get it to the fucking wingers. I've swore there. I'm really sorry. But get it to the wingers.
Just passionate,
and whip
Testo.
it in. You want Tammy Abraham to just bang it in with his head. You just want somebody like a barge pole just to bang it in. Just for the option to have somebody like that.
He's not been active this season. I don't think he could be in
No, I don't think he has,
this
but
year.
I just think in terms of versatility.
For me, Peter Crouch is more active in the Paddy Power advert than he has been all season.
Yeah, but that's what I mean though.
22 matches, 6 goals and 1 assist. Do you really want to be taking that on the plane?
Honestly, I would, just for the versatility. Who else would you have? If you're in a match, if you think about it, and there's no creativity in midfield, Foden's dropped off, Mount's dropped off. They just can't do it. They can't break down the midfield. They can't break down the defence. And we've got to resort to just hoofing balls into the box.
You keep Harry Kane on.
I just want somebody there.
If Kane's got one leg, he could have.
I'd stick him up.
Could be on crutches. You leave Harry
Kane off. Don't take Kane off. I'd stick him up top with him. You know, like maybe drop to 2 midfielders, take Foden off or something. Don't have that attacking threat behind Kane. Stick 2 up top, play 4-4-2, whatever. Just have your 2 strikers up top and whip it into him. Even if he knocks it down for Kane, just get it into that box. I just want someone like that.
Yeah, I get you, but I completely disagree. Like I know.
Tammy Abraham in your on the plane for you, Testo. Sorry.
He would be. No, he would be.
I don't.
So go back to your point here, because I'm so confused. As a winger, especially if you're with the ball into the box, who would you be aiming for? Because I know 9 times out of 10 it would be Harry Kane over Tammy Abraham.
I don't know. Well, yeah, but if you just want to talk about his height, and I know he's like, what were we saying? He was like 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah, he's something like that.
Yeah, I'd have him. I'd just have him there. I just want him there just for the option to bring on.
Yeah.
I think he looks tall. Me and Ben were talking about it the other day, and I think he just looks tall. I don't think he's actually 6'5".
I can't remember how tall it was.
Lanky.
No,
but
I think
again,
he is like 6'4", you know.
Like, trust Fort Mob here, right? Not trying to angle for any sponsorship or anything. But he's 190 centimeters. Whatever that is in
he's
foot.
6'3". He's 6'3".
Wait, it says 6'2" on this, so we always round down.
Right. Look, he's 3 centimeters smaller than Giroud. No, 3 millimeters smaller than Giroud.
Millimeters?
I don't know. He's smaller than Giroud by a bit. He's about the same height as Giroud.
But look at how useful Giroud is. Like, if you're bringing anyone scenario, if Giroud miraculously was English, you put Giroud on, you don't put Tammy on. Like, Tuchel's done it, Lampard's done it.
Over Tammy. I'd have Giroud over Tammy if he was English. But again, I just want somebody like that.
For me, Calvert-Lewin does that in abundance.
Do you think?
100%.
I don't know. I don't think so. He just hasn't got the aerial threat.
I think he's another person that dropped off later on, like the back end of the season.
Yeah, he was brilliant at the start, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was going for Golden Boot at the start.
I don't know if that's got to do with something with James Rodriguez not having him in the squad due to injury. It could be something to do with that, but I just don't think Calvert-Lewin's.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Calvert-Lewin, he was the type of player that thrived off having someone play behind him. Which, I mean, to be fair, you would have in the England squad. You'd have Foden behind him, or you'd have Mount behind him. You'd have somebody like creative behind him. So I think, honestly, for all I've said, I wouldn't take him. I think it's a good shout, to be honest.
I agree, but somebody we haven't said at all during any of the team, any position, and he fits in all of them technically. Bukayo Saka. Like, every professional, every pundit is saying they want Bukayo Saka. Are they saying something that we're not, or are they just being incredibly biased towards the London teams? Because I don't see how he gets in the team.
He's another person I had him in reserves. For me, think he's had a good season, but it's one of them. I think we've got better players in front of us for not taking him on the plane. I think there's better people there. Don't get us wrong, in 2-3 years more time, he might get better. And some players that we've got might drop off, but for me, I just think the players that we've got at the minute, I think this is the best chance. I don't think Saka even gets on the minibus, never mind the plane.
In defense of Bukayo Saka, though, before, if we go back to when we were talking about the fullbacks, when we were talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold, you would push forward more than any other right back that we have. If we want to play like that, we want to have, like 3 defenders, and then we want to have these 2 wing backs push forward. Would you be confident playing Chilwell or Luke Shaw in that role where the playing almost is like a semi like left midfielder? Because I wouldn't. So if we are talking about having Trent and playing Trent where he plays best, I'd want to play Saka alongside him in that left wing back role over Shaw or Chilwell. So I think in terms of versatility, he could be a good shout to take.
See, Testo, when you were saying, obviously, when you were going to left back and right back, I think, obviously, we're going back to the Liverpool thing, where, obviously...
Think we've lost you, Jack.
Yeah, you've
the
cut off.
joys of having to do podcasts over Discord.
See that? I don't know. What I feel like he was going to say about how England have never really played like Liverpool like that, which is true, because, we don't play with those wing backs pushing forward.
Yeah.
But if we were to, just as a thought experiment, you'd probably want Saka there to fill in for like how will Liverpool use Andy Robertson. You'd want Saka there for that. I don't think England ever will play like that. I wouldn't play them like that.
Yeah, I think we've got Jack back.
Yeah, so going back to my point, I think Liverpool, obviously, I think they've got the left hand to push them wingers so far. But I think if you go back to England, when you mentioned Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw, I don't think they've got the mentality to push. Obviously, Chilwell, yes, a bit more, but would you really want to drop Luke Shaw?
Oh, no, absolutely not, nah. But I mean, like, in terms of if for whatever reason you came up against a team and you thought it's going to be best, we could break this team down definitely by having the creativity come from the wing backs, and you want to play Calvin Phillips, Jordan Henderson, or Declan Rice sitting deep, covering, for the fullback role, and you want to have the wing backs push forward, you'd probably want somebody like Saka there over Luke Shaw or Ben Chilwell. I just don't think they have the ability to do it. But just in defence of Saka, I'm not saying I'd take him.
I personally think Saka is in that category with Wan-Bissaka, with many others that were mentioned like Greenwood. They aren't experienced enough as England internationals to be taken to a tournament, especially when we're one of the favourites to win on most betting apps. We're pushing and have the best England squad we've had in a very long time. And it's only down to Gareth Southgate and what he does tomorrow. But he can't fit everyone in, and there's always going to be someone disappointed. And I personally think Saka's not going to be there. And I know we've had our own opinions, we play our own styles of play, but there's going to be a lot of disappointed players and a lot of angry fans or disappointed fans that a player hasn't got there that's had such a good season. Like Greenwood could fall into that. Foden could even fall into that. Henderson might not make it because of injury.
Foden better not fall into that.
I know, but just for an example.
Foden falls into that.
We're done for if that happens.
You never know what he's going to do, so...
Anything can happen. But hopefully...
anything can happen.
Come lunchtime tomorrow, we find out and it goes England's way, because it could be coming home.
Yeah, hopefully he hasn't dropped Harry Kane.
Hopefully he comes home, yeah.
It will be coming home.
We definitely are going to have another episode out reacting to Southgate's team, And in that, I think
Yeah.
we need to pick our starting 11s then. If we picked our starting 11s
Starting
now,
11's out of his team.
we're gonna disappear a little bit if we pick them out of our own, like out with 26 men, and they differ so differently. Doing it off Southgate's, we're gonna have a better team, and we could pick one together because realistically we've picked the same players.
Obviously, this isn't going into the starting 11, but has everyone actually got like a standout formation? What they would use?
Yeah.
4-4.
Yeah. No. We have. Do you want to
4-3-3
go through?
with a centre attack.
We'll go through it. Andy
Yeah,
goes
go
again.
through.
So mine's 4-3-3 with a centre attacking mid.
Jack.
So I've got 4-3-3, but I've got one holding and two attacking.
Okay, Matty.
I went 4-3. I went 4-3-3, holding two centre mids in front. Obviously, one of them being like a forward and sort of free roam, more attacking. The other sort of box to box.
Testo.
Yeah, I'd also play a 4-3-3 with a centre defensive midfielder.
Well, it comes with no surprise, but I've gone with a 4-3-3 with a holding midfielder.
So am I the only one being different here?
Realistically, Andy, yeah.
Yeah.
But Southgate's gonna be different to us all again, and he's gonna play a 3 at the back or 5 at the back.
He'll play 5 at the bar.
I think even in a 4-3-3 though, it's so easy to transition into a 5 at the back
He'll
if
play 5-2-3.
needed.
Now, with Henderson playing
needed.
deep, you've got it.
Yeah, especially with Henderson, you can have that player drop back. You can have your centre midfielders drop back. You know what I mean? Or you can have your wing backs push forward. You've just got so much opportunity for like change and versatility in it.
Thing is though, if you play 5-2-3, which he's most likely going to do, there's so many good players who you're leaving out. They're like, you need a Jordan Henderson in that centre mid, so that frees up one spot, and then maybe, I mean, as you've been saying, like maybe you can have Mason Mount there, but then where do you put Foden? Because Jadon Sancho, I feel, has to play. I think Grealish has to play.
Yeah,
like,
It's gonna be fun. It is gonna be fun.
It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be interesting seeing what the team actually is. I'm kind of excited to see.
Thank you to anyone who's listened this way through as well to our ramblings. 5 Geordies can be hard to listen to or understand at times, but hopefully we've picked something that resembles the 26-man squad tomorrow.
Absolutely not. I don't think any of us here have got it right. If anyone has got it exactly right, you can have £20 when the next episode goes out.
We'll remember that.
I'll put my PayPal on the Discord chat.
Thanks again,
Alright, so
and we'll see you soon, I reckon.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.